I returned from a trip to find my wife and kids homeless. My brother sold our home. The day everything broke. Richie Hill never imagined that a business trip would cost him his home. The plane landed in Atlanta just after 6:30 p.m. His phone buzzed non-stop the moment airplane mode went off. Missed calls. Messages. Voicemails. Most of them were from his wife, Tasha. That alone made his stomach tighten. Tasha never called like that. She was calm. Steady. The kind of woman who carried storms quietly so her children wouldn't feel the rain. Richie pulled his carry-on behind him, weaving through the crowded terminal as he finally pressed her name. Richie, Tasha's voice cracked immediately. Where are you right now? I just landed, he said quickly. What's wrong? Are the kids okay? There was a pause. A long one. Too long. We don't have a house anymore, she said. Richie stopped walking. The airport noise blurred. Laughter, announcements, rolling luggage. Everything faded except her words. What do you mean we don't have a house? He asked slowly. Tasha swallowed. I mean, Richie, your brother sold it. Richie laughed once. A sharp, confused sound. That's not funny. I'm not joking. His chest tightened. Sold what? Our house, she said. The house you built. The house we raised our kids in. Richie, we're sleeping in my cousin's living room. Richie leaned against a pillar, his knees suddenly weak. That's impossible, he whispered. Derek can't sell my house. It's in my name. Tasha's voice broke completely. He showed papers. The sheriff came. The locks were changed. Richie closed his eyes. Derek. His older brother. The same brother he trusted. The same brother he left in charge while he traveled for 3 months to secure a contract that was supposed to change their lives. Richie had no idea that while he was gone, someone was quietly erasing everything he owned. Richie met Derek at their mother's house an hour after landing. Derek was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, calm. Too calm. Bro, Derek said casually. You look tired. Richie dropped his bag and walked straight toward him. What did you do? Derek sighed dramatically. Here we go. What did you do? Richie repeated, his voice shaking now. I handled family business, Derek said. That house was dead weight. Richie stared at him. You sold my home. Derek shrugged. Technically, our home. Richie laughed bitterly. Our home. I paid for it. My name is on the deed. Derek leaned forward. Not anymore. Richie's hands clenched into fists. Explain. Slowly. Derek stood up. Mom needed money. I needed capital. You were gone. Decisions had to be made. Richie felt something snap inside him. You made my wife and kids homeless, Richie said. They're fine, Derek replied. They have family. Richie stepped closer. You didn't even call me. Derek's face hardened. Because you'd say no. You always do. You think because you make more money, you get to control everything. Richie shook his head. This isn't control. This is theft. Derek scoffed. You left. I stepped up. Richie stared at the man he grew up with and realized something terrifying. Derek didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. And that's when Richie understood. The fight ahead wasn't just about a house. It was about betrayal, family loyalty, and how far someone will go when they believe they're entitled to what you built. Richie didn't want to believe his mother was involved. Even as he drove to her house, he kept telling himself there had to be a misunderstanding. Derek was reckless, yes. Entitled, yes. But their mother, Lorraine Hill, had always preached fairness. Prayer. Family unity. That belief shattered the moment she opened the door. She didn't look surprised to see him. Richie, she said softly, stepping aside. Come in. That was all it took. No confusion. No questions. No shock. Richie walked into the living room slowly, his heart pounding. "You knew," he said. Lorraine folded her hands together. "Sit down first." "No," Richie snapped. "You knew Derek sold my house." She exhaled deeply. "Richie, please don't raise your voice." "My children are homeless," he said, his voice breaking. "And you're worried about your ears?" Lorraine's eyes filled with tears, but Richie didn't move. "We needed the money," she said finally. Richie laughed in disbelief. "You needed my money?" "Derek was drowning," she replied. "Debt everywhere. Gambling. Bad investments. He came to me crying." Richie felt sick. "So you let him destroy my family to save his pride?" Lorraine shook her head. "I didn't think it would go this far." "You signed papers," Richie said. "Didn't you?" Her silence answered him. Richie stumbled backward like he'd been slapped. "You forged my signature," he whispered. "It wasn't forgery," she said quickly. "You gave Derek power of attorney years ago, remember? When Dad was sick." Richie froze. He remembered. A single document. Signed in trust. Signed in love. "You never revoked it," Lorraine continued. "Legally. Derek had the authority." Richie sank into a chair. That paper, meant to protect the family, had become the knife that cut them apart. "And my wife?" Richie asked quietly. "Did you think about her? About my kids?" Lorraine wiped her face. "Tasha is strong." Richie stood. "Strength isn't permission to abuse someone." Lorraine reached for his arm. "Richie, please. We can fix this." He pulled away. "You already chose your side." And for the first time in his life, Richie walked out of his mother's house without saying goodbye. Tasha tried to smile when Richie walked into her cousin's apartment. Tried. But exhaustion clung to her like smoke. The kids were asleep on blankets in the living room, their school bags lined neatly against the wall like they were just visiting. Like this wasn't their new reality. Richie knelt beside them, his chest tight. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Tasha sat beside him. "Don't apologize for loving your family." Richie looked at her. "You shouldn't have gone through this alone." She swallowed. "I didn't want to distract you." That hurt more than the betrayal. "You're my home," Richie said. "Not a building." Tasha rested her head on his shoulder. "Then fight for us." He nodded slowly. "I'm going to sue," he said. "Derek. Anyone involved." Tasha looked up at him. "Including your mother?" Richie hesitated. The question hung heavy between them. "Yes," he said finally. "If that's what it takes." Tasha reached for his hand. "I'll stand with you." "But Richie, this will break the family." Richie looked at his children. "It already did," he said. That night, as the city slept, Richie made a quiet promise to himself. He would rebuild. Not just a house, but boundaries. And the people who crossed them would finally face consequences. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and strong coffee. Richie sat stiffly across from attorney Sheila Brooks, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who had seen enough family betrayals to last a lifetime. Tasha sat beside him, her hand wrapped firmly around his. Sheila flipped through the documents slowly. "Power of attorney," she said at last. "Valid at the time of sale." Richie's jaw tightened. "So he gets away with it?" Sheila looked up. "Not so fast." She slid another paper forward. "This document was meant for medical and temporary financial decisions during your father's illness. Derek used it to sell property for personal gain." Tasha leaned forward. "That's illegal?" Sheila nodded. "It's abuse of authority. And there's more." Richie frowned. "More." "The house was sold under market value," Sheila continued. "And the buyer is a company registered to." She paused. "To who?" Richie demanded. "Derek's girlfriend." The room went silent. Tasha covered her mouth. "So he sold it to himself." Richie felt anger rise like fire in his chest. He planned this. Yes, Sheila said calmly. And that makes it fraud. Richie exhaled slowly. What can we do? Tasha asked. Sheila leaned back. We file an emergency injunction. Freeze the property. Then we sue. Richie nodded. Do it. Sheila smiled slightly. Be prepared. Family cases get ugly. Richie stood. So does betrayal. Derek was laughing when Richie called. Bro. Back already. Derek said casually. Richie didn't waste words. You're being sued. Silence. What? Derek scoffed. For what? Fraud. Abuse of power. Illegal sale of property. Derek laughed again, nervously this time. You're bluffing. Check your email, Richie said. You've been served. The line went quiet. You wouldn't do that to family, Derek said slowly. Richie's voice was calm. Too calm. You already did. Derek's tone shifted. Richie, let's talk. We can work something out. You worked something out when I wasn't there, Richie replied. Now I'm here. You're really choosing lawyers over blood? Derek snapped. Richie smiled bitterly. You chose money over my children. Derek's voice dropped. Mom will never forgive you. Richie paused, then spoke clearly. She already chose. He ended the call. That night, Derek sat alone in his apartment, staring at the lawsuit papers, his hands shaking. For the first time, the truth hit him hard. Richie wasn't coming back to fix things quietly. This time, Richie was coming back to take everything back. News travels fast in black families. By the time Richie arrived at work on Monday morning, he already knew the story had escaped the walls of court filings and phone calls. His phone buzzed nonstop. Cousins, aunties, church members, people he hadn't spoken to in years. Some messages were supportive. Others were judgmental. Why would you take your own brother to court? Family matters should stay in the family. Your mother is crying. Richie silenced his phone. At lunch, a coworker leaned over. Man, is it true your brother sold your house? Richie nodded. Yes. That's cold. It's illegal, Richie corrected. That afternoon, Derek showed up at their mother's church. He sat in the front row, head bowed dramatically, shoulders shaking during prayer. After service, he spoke loudly to anyone who would listen. I was just trying to help Mom, he said. Richie doesn't understand sacrifice. Lorraine stood beside him, torn between shame and loyalty. By evening, the narrative was splitting in two. One side saw Richie as ungrateful. The other saw Derek as a thief. But when court records became public, the truth hit hard. Fraud. Undervaluation. Self-dealing. Receipts don't care about tears. And Derek's reputation began to crack. Richie dreaded this part the most. One evening, as the kids sat on the floor doing homework, his oldest daughter, Nia, looked up. Daddy, she said softly, did we do something wrong? Richie froze. What do you mean, baby? Our house, she said. Did God take it because we were bad? Richie's chest tightened painfully. He knelt in front of her. No, absolutely not. Tasha joined them, her eyes glassy. Sometimes, Richie said carefully, grown-ups make very bad choices. Nia frowned. Like Uncle Derek? Richie paused. Yes, he said. Like him. Will we get our house back? His son Malik asked. Richie looked at Tasha. I don't know yet, he admitted. But I promise you this, we will be okay. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Tasha spoke quietly. They hear everything, she said. Richie nodded. And they're learning. What? She asked. That even family has consequences. Tasha reached for his hand. Just don't let this harden you. Richie squeezed her fingers. It's teaching me where my loyalty belongs. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. And somewhere across the city, Derek sat alone, scrolling through messages that were no longer supportive. For the first time in his life, he was being held accountable. And he didn't like how heavy truth felt. The courtroom was colder than Richie expected. Not in temperature, but in feeling. Richie sat beside Tasha, his back straight, jaw set. Across the aisle, Derek sat with his lawyer, wearing a gray suit that tried too hard to look humble. Lorraine sat behind him, clutching her purse like a lifeline. When the judge entered, the room stood. "This court will now hear Hill versus Hill," the clerk announced. Richie felt the weight of those words. Family versus family. Derek's lawyer spoke first, painting a careful picture. A struggling son. A concerned mother. A brother who was absent and uninvolved. Richie clenched his fist but stayed silent. Then it was their turn. Attorney Sheila Brooks stood calmly. "This case is not about family disagreements. It is about fraud." She presented the evidence one piece at a time. The power of attorney, limited and misused. The sale price, far below market value. The buyer, linked directly to Derek. The judge's brow furrowed deeper with each document. When Derek took the stand, his confidence cracked. "Did you inform your brother before selling the house?" the judge asked. Derek hesitated. "No, Your Honor." "Did you personally benefit from the sale?" "Yes, but I intended to repay." The judge raised a hand. "Intent does not override law." Richie watched his brother shrink under questions he could no longer dodge. Then Sheila said the words no one expected. "The plaintiff calls a new witness. This story has only just begun." In the next episode of I Came Back from a Trip and Found My Family Homeless, my own brother sold our house, the battle intensifies. Will Richie succeed in getting his house back, or will Derek walk away victorious? Don't miss the next episode. Subscribe to Mirror Wealth Stories for more powerful, real-life inspired stories. Like, comment, share, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss an update.